Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. The reward for killing an 8-leaf cultivator was 1,500 merit points, but the reward for killing a 9-leaf cultivator was 4,000 merit points. That was more than twice the number of points. According to the system's calculations, Qi Yao's reward was 5,000 merit points. In other words, Qi Yao was slightly stronger than a 9-leaf cultivator. When he recalled his experience in the 100,000-foot deep abyss, he could not help but feel afraid despite his knowledge and experience. After all, if he did not have a deadly strike card back then, he would have become Qi Yao's meal. Even after he had used half of his extraordinary power, Qi Yao did not seem to be affected much. Without the deadly strike card as his trump card, the outcome would be predictable. Compared to Qi Yao, the Imperial Tutor was, indeed, slightly weaker. The rain stopped as the purple gas gradually faded away into nothingness. When the rain stopped, a rainbow appeared in the sunny sky. Peace was finally restored with the final drop of the rain. Wizard cried out as it surveyed the results of its doing before it flew away. After it had exhausted its power, it had to hibernate. Zhou glanced at the system dashboard. As expected, Wizard's status was now displayed as resting. Zhou could vaguely tell Wizard had expended more energy this time compared to before. He wondered if 7 days would be enough for Wizard to recover. Master, Wizard is amazing. Little Yuan flew over with Conk in tow. Zhou turned back to look at Conk. Conk was looking at the destruction on land with a complex expression. It was only natural that Liang Province City would bear scars from the war. This was especially obvious in places where the 7 flying chariots had swept past. Do you know him? Zhou asked probingly. Conk shook her head and said, I don't. Zhou did not mention the red lotus. This was because most Great Yin cultivators did not know about the difference between red and golden lotuses. Do you remember where your hometown is? Zhou asked. Far, far away. We'd need to sail on a boat for a long time, Conk replied. Zhou turned around and faced Conk. He asked seriously, what kind of boat? A red coffin. You've seen it before, Master, Conk replied. It was just as Zhou had guessed. Upon hearing this, Wuya, who was standing nearby, was shocked. He did not expect the red coffin to be a means of transportation. The red runes on the red coffin possessed shocking defenses. Indeed, it was a wonderful idea to ferry cultivators across the black water of the abyss on it. Do you remember the black water? Zhou asked. Conk shook her head, confused. Clear seawater. There's no black water. You didn't sail on black water? Zhou asked. Conk shook her head again. This answer exceeded Zhou's expectations. This meant there was more than one route to enter the Red Lotus domain from this world. Do you know Luo Shirin? Zhou asked. Luo. I know. Conk beamed as though she had heard a familiar name. Where is she? I don't remember. What about the others? I don't remember. Conk shook her head dejectedly. Zhou seemed slightly disheartened. With Conk's current awakening state, it was already commendable for her to remember this much. Give me your hand, Zhou said. Oh. Conk obediently extended her arm toward her master. Aside from Wuya, who was watching this scene with a thoughtful expression, the others did not know what Zhou was doing. Zhou examined Conk's pulse. After the examination, he fell deep into his thoughts. From the examination, Conk's vitality seemed strong. She seemed to have 1,000 years of life left in her. She had a long way to go before reaching her great limit. She was a stark contrast to Zhenghai. Zhenghai had died thrice. His 1,000 years of life were completely spent. The red fish heart, which restored some of his life, was the only reason he was still alive. His life aura was weak. Clearly, Conk was not of a tribe like the Wuqi. Hence, it was almost impossible for Luo Shirin to be Conk. Naturally, it was too early to be sure about that. Who knew if the Red Lotus domain had more shocking resurrection techniques? When Zhou saw the troubled expression on Kong's face, he said, "There's no need to force yourself to remember it." "I'm sorry, Master. I didn't forget it on purpose," Kong said remorsefully. Little Yuan tugged Kong's hand and said, "It's all right. Master won't blame you." MHM. The great Yen cultivators took flight and hovered above Liang province as they looked at the devastated city. They sighed in unison. Although the price was heavy, it brought them peace. It was worth it. After this war, the 12 allied nations would disband. There would not be any huge disturbances for the time being. Hundreds of cultivators rose into the air and faced Zhou before they bowed at him sincerely. All their unsaid words of gratitude were contained in this gesture. At this moment, avatars came flying toward them from the east. The one in the lead was Yi Tianqin, who dressed in all white. She activated her 8-leaf avatar from time to time as she sped through the air. Behind her, Hua Wudao, Hua Yueshing, Zui Yushu, and the others rushed forth as well. Little Yuan went up to meet them. She said, "Senior sister, you're late." Yi Tianqin stopped and looked around. She wondered, "We're late?" "Sixth senior sister." Master came all the way with his 9-leaf avatar and his grand technique. Just like. Little Yuan was at a loss for words. She could not find the proper words to articulate her thoughts. Enough. Zhou knew that he would most probably be showered with flattery after this. However, this was not the time for it. Yi Tianqin led the others and bowed. "Master." "Pavilion Master." When Zui Yushu, Hua Wudao, and Hua Yueshing saw the carnage, it took some time for them to calm down. They could hardly imagine what had happened here. The extent of the destruction in the city had exceeded their expectations. The curtain-like barrier in the sky was completely shattered. In the midst of the destruction, corpses were strewn everywhere. Zhou stroked his beard and said, "Clean this up." Understood. The great Yen cultivators went to work immediately. Si Wuya said, "Master, the eastern part of the city is undamaged. You've fought for a long time. Why don't you rest there?" "All right." Although Zhou's extraordinary power had been restored by Witzert's power, how could he remain unaffected from such a long battle? He needed some time to be alone with his thoughts. Meanwhile, in a towering palace in the Red Lotus domain, an old man with a red crown rested with his eyes closed while he stayed seated. A subordinate walked in. He bowed and said, "Elder Qiu, Elder Jiang Wenshu's life stone has shattered." The old man wearing a red crown opened his eyes and said, "He hasn't been heard from since many years ago. He has many methods to protect himself. Only a 10-leaf cultivator could kill him. A 10-leaf cultivator would be 1,000 realms whirling. Should we seek to avenge Elder Zhang's death from such a powerful being? There's an order for everything. Study the crystal he sent back for now. Also, tell them to determine the route of the Red Coffin's path as soon as possible." "We must find out where he was," Elder Qiu said. "Understood. Also, what's the situation with the Flying Star House?" Elder Qiu asked. "The Flying Star House has taken down the Luan and is in high spirits. However, they've suffered a huge loss as well. I heard they're trying to investigate a mysterious murderer, but they haven't found anything yet," the subordinate replied. "Murderer?" When Flying Star House was carrying out their mission, they lost a 5-leaf cultivator. They're sure it's not the doing of a beast. They've been asking around in the city, but they didn't expect the mysterious elite to be so skilled with the sword. He has killed 3 of them so far. Elder Qiu nodded and said, "An elite swordsman such as that surely won't be a nobody. Have our men investigate him. The enemy of our enemy is a friend. Try to get him on our side." Understood. At this moment, the individual who was the topic of many conversations, Yu Shangrong, was sitting in a tavern, taking occasional sips from his wine cup. He looked at the little girl with the big blinking eyes seated opposite him. He wondered if he had been conducting himself too gently that this little girl was bold enough to follow him around. Hence, he did his best to appear cold and said, "If you follow me again, I'll kill you." Wuwu blinked. Not only did she not find him scary, but she found his contradictory behavior rather cute. She stifled a laugh. Then, she raised her palm that was glowing with a faint red energy that seemed forceful but gentle at the same time. "Senior brother, where did you spend the last few nights? Did any bird catch you? Are you hurt? Let me heal you. My healing technique is amazing." Yu Shangrong was speechless. When Wuwu saw she was being ignored again, she said dejectedly, "How can you not be hurt?" Yu Shangrong said, "The beasts are terrifying, but it's not difficult to avoid them." When he was young, he had made it all the way through various forests and vast lands from the northernmost parts of Great Yan with his limbs intact. Having spent most of his time living in forests and frozen wastelands, his sense of danger was greater than most. On top of that, he was an 8-leaf cultivator. "You're amazing." Wuwu leaned back on her seat and rested her chin on her hands. Yu Shangrong stood up. He picked up his longevity sword before he said, "Goodbye. I'm not deliberately following you. To quote your words, senior brother, this must be fate. Brother, your life aura isn't compatible with your cultivation base." Wuwu leaped off her chair and followed him out of the tavern. Yu Shangrong stopped in his tracks and turned to look at her. "You can tell?" The people from the Melalot nation had short lives. Being alive was a luxury. If they died, they would not feel resentful nor would they blame the heavens or the others. At this moment, a figure appeared behind a Wuwu. "Junior sister, it's time to return." "Senior brother, you came just in time. This is the man I told you about. He's an elite swordsman." "He's amazing," Wuwu said. The person who appeared behind Wuwu was a middle-aged man. He had thick brows and big eyes. He carried a broadsword. He looked at Yu Shangrong warily as he said, "I'm Ji Fingxing from the Thousand Willow Monastery. How should I address you, sir?" Yu Shangrong said calmly, "We're merely strangers who met by chance. There's no need for us to get familiar. Farewell." "Wait." Ji Fingxing circulated his primal qi. His sword thrummed in his hand. "I've always liked to make friends through the sword. If Wuwu thinks you're skilled, then there's no doubt you're skilled with the sword. What do you say to a brief sparring session?" If Ji Fingxing had said anything else, Yu Shangrong would have ignored him and left. However, swords and everything that had to do with them had always piqued his interest. It was rare for a person to be devoted to a single interest in their entire life. For example, his eldest senior brother loved booze. With wine on the table, his eldest senior brother's worries seemed to lessen. For him, as long as he had his sword with him, he would be happy even if it was just traveling the pugilistic world. A contest of sword techniques? Yu Shangrong turned around and regarded the middle-aged man with interest. "I'm not good, but I was given the title Sword Devil of Thousand Willow Monastery." Sword Devil? Due to Yu Shangrong's skills, he had borne this title for a long time. No one in Great Yan dared to use this title due to their fear of him. He felt strange listening to someone addressing themselves as the Sword Devil. "That's right," Ji Fengxing said. Yu Shangrong asked indifferently, "How do you want to compete?" "We'll control our swords with qi below the Brahman Sea realm," Ji Fengxing replied. If they used the power at the Divine Court realm or higher, it would be difficult to control the damage from their sparring session. Therefore, most people in the Red Lotus realm preferred to spar using strength in or below the Brahman Sea realm. Yu Shangrong found the suggestion agreeable. He nodded and smiled. "All right." Ji Fengxing drew his sword. His primal qi flowed along his extraordinary 8 meridians, through his palm, and into his sword. The sword technique from the Thousand Willow Monastery focuses on brute strength. We're known for our speed in condensing qi into energy. The lengths of our energy swords may vary, and we prefer the ways of nature. Once Ji Fengxing drew his sword, he seemed to have changed into another different person. "Sir, anyone who's capable of forcing me to make 3 strikes can be considered as an elite swordsman." "I." Swash. A flash of red light shone. Bam. Before Ji Fengxing finished speaking, Yu Shangrong was already returning his sword to its scabbard. His expression was as indifferent as usual. Ji Fengxing's sword was still raised. The word, I seemed to be caught in his throat. Crack. Ji Fengxing's sword cleanly snapped into two in his hand and dropped to the ground. While he was speaking, his weapon was broken by his opponent before he could even make a move. He was like a stunned wooden chicken at this moment. There were no changes in Yu Shangrong's expression. This was nothing to feel proud about, after all. Although he was new to the Red Lotus domain, elites were his targets. Yu Shangrong felt a pang of disappointment and loneliness at this moment. Perhaps, it would be very difficult for him to find a peer who could walk alongside him on the path of the sword. The sword devil from the Red Lotus domain was incredibly boring. Thank you for going easy on me, Yu Shangrong said perfunctorily before he turned around and walked toward the setting sun. The sunlight made his shadow appear long and straight. When Ji Fengxing regained his senses, he hurriedly chased after Yu Shangrong. Hey, hey, hey. I wasn't prepared when you struck. How could you do that? Yu Shangrong remained silent. Ji Fengxing continued to say, although you've won, I'm not satisfied with this result. Do you hear me? Wu followed Ji Fengxing and said, Senior brother, there you go again. Little kids should stay out of a conversation between adults. What do you mean again? Then, he turned to Yu Shangrong and said, Hey, I'm talking to you. We're kindred spirits, aren't we? Swoosh. Yu Shangrong drew his sword again. Ji Fengxing sped backward. Yu Shangrong moved closer. It was a dazzling sight when his sword shadows overlapped. Whoosh. 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 Yu Shangrong split into three blurry figures. Return and enter three souls. In the next second, the longevity sword was already close to Ji Fengxing's neck. If it moved another inch closer, blood would be drawn. It was silent and still at this moment. Ji Fengxing gulped as he looked at the person in front of him incredulously. The two of them maintained this posture for a brief moment. After a while, Yu Shangrong retracted his longevity sword and said tonelessly, if this were a fight to the death, you'd have died 10 times over. Ji Fengxing could not refute Yu Shangrong's words. After a brief moment of silence, he asked, what sword technique is this? Yu Shangrong crossed his arms and said slowly, there are 4 levels of swords. The first is the commoner's sword, the second is the feudal vassal's sword, the third is the king's sword, and the highest level of sword is using creation as a sword. Being without a sword is better than wielding a sword. Ji Fengxing was puzzled by this statement. Yu Shangrong said, your sword technique is weak. I advise you to not use the title Sword Devil after this. If that hurts your ego, I can only apologize. Farewell. He turned around and left after he finished speaking. Senior. Ji Fengxing's form of address changed immediately. Anything else? What level are you? Ji Fengxing asked. Me? Yu Shangrong shook his head and said remorsefully, I'm only at the 2nd level. Ji Fengxing appeared incredulous. He said, if you're at the 2nd level, who's at the highest level? Naturally, that'd be my master, Yu Shangrong replied. Your master? Ji Fengxing was shocked. He must be the most powerful swordsman in the world. Yu Shangrong shook his head and said, my master isn't known for his sword skills, but his palm seals. Ji Fengxing exclaimed emotionally, the old mister is skilled in palm seals. That's great. I like palm seals. Yu Shangrong had a feeling that this person had a fleeting interest in everything. He immediately lost his intention to exchange thoughts about sword techniques with this person. It was difficult for him to get along with such a person. It would be akin to a rocket maker trying to have a conversation with a fireworks maker. They were not on the same frequency. In the end, he asked, your sword techniques aren't polished. How could you call yourself Sword Devil? At this, Wu laughed and said, Big brother, this is the title he uses to scare the others. He loves the sword, but he couldn't find a teacher. It'd be great if you're willing to teach him, big brother. Realization dawned on Yu Shangrong. He asked, aren't there any teachers in Thousand Willow Monastery who can teach you? Upon hearing this, Ji Fengxing said with a sigh, my talents are a far cry from Wuwu's. Wuwu is from the same village as I am. That's why she's trying to help me. This way of doing things is slightly risky. Ji Fengxing assumed Yu Shangrong was an elite who had concealed his strength. If that were the case, Yu Shangrong had thought too highly of him. As they conversed, the sun set. Yu Shangrong had an idea. He asked, where is the Thousand Willow Monastery? It's not far from here. Yu Shangrong smiled. Are there any rooms there? Ji Fengxing was stunned when he heard this. He said, if it were anyone else, there's no way it'd be allowed. However, if it's you, senior, there'll always be room. Leave it to me. He had heard from Wuwu that this elite was homeless. If this elite stayed in Thousand Willow Monastery, he could ask the elite to teach him swordplay. As the saying went, the pavilion closest to the water enjoys moonlight first. Thank you. Great Yen. 2 days later. In the eastern part of Liang Province City. Inside a Nether Sect branch. Lu Zhou saw the system points on the dashboard and was filled with emotions. He decided that it was time to raise his cultivation base.